Why would she be so surprised that Jane would draw the correlation between Meghan's experience and these families' experiences in the Parents Network? And then Meghan continues, right? And she says, when you've been through any level of pain or trauma, I believe part of our healing journey, certainly part of mine, is being able to be really open about it. I would never want someone else to not be believed, so if me voicing what I have overcome will save someone or ask or encourage someone in their life to really genuinely check in on them and not assume that the appearance is good so everything's okay and that's worth it, I'll take the hit for that. What is she talking about? Again, why would you take the hit for being thrust into a damaging psychological experience that would make you want to kill yourself? Why would you be taking a hit for that, for what supposedly other people are driving you to? Do you see what I mean? She knows that people don't believe the story, and that's why she's saying, I'm relaying my story and you don't believe me, but I'm going to take the hit for it anyway because I'm now advocating for these parents in this Parents Network, and that's why I'm such a wonderful person. And then she's, I believe, further making threats because she's saying in this interview that she hadn't really even scratched the surface over what her experience was. That's her veiled way of saying, I haven't released all of the details about all the tragic circumstances that I had to endure behind the scenes. Maybe she's saving it for her book after when they divorce. Hey you guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Jennifer, so happy to have you here. I hope you're having a wonderful and warm festive Christmas season with your family, wherever you are, whether you are surrounded by family and friends or whether you are alone. I am so happy to have you here. Know that you are not alone. I am sending my love and my thoughts to you. We just had a really quiet and cozy Christmas here with the family. I'm here with my husband, my twins, and my mom, and it's been a lot adjusting to life in Germany, life overseas. I was a homeschool mom for 5 years. I had the comfort and just cozy little homeschool for 5 years, and now letting my kids out into the wild, so to speak. It's been an adjustment for everyone. It was kind of nice with all of the crazy chaos of the last 5-6 months to just breathe and relax, and they've got 2.5 more weeks to just settle in and chill out, and that's exactly what we're gonna do. So I don't know if you caught my last video where I'm talking about the biggest lie that I felt Meghan Markle ever told the public, and that is when she said that during the pregnancy with Archie, she felt that she wanted to unalive herself due to the tremendous stress and pressure of being a member of the British royal family and also of dealing with the oppressive and racist British public. She had felt that she was just the victim of a really damaging and just ongoing narrative that was set to destroy her, and it was the stress of all of that led her to want to unalive herself. She is actually quoted in the interview that she gave to Oprah Winfrey that she wanted to not be alive anymore. So in that video, I talk about why I feel that her using the sensitive topic of suicide, in my personal opinion, to perpetuate her ongoing narrative of victimhood was particularly egregious, and from a longer video that I released in November. And I look at in detail the case of the Kessler twins, who were a very famous twin entertaining group in Germany, and they entered into a suicide pact, so to speak, with an assisted dying organization in Germany. And I talk about the tragedy of that situation juxtaposed with how I believe Meghan used that sensitive and tragic topic of suicide to further her own narrative. But the reason why I'm making a follow-up to the video that I just posted was because I got a lot of comments under that video. Majority were saying that they were in agreement with me. And they were saying that given that everything that they know of Meghan in these last 5 years, what we have seen and observed about her behavior, that they also thought that she was also just making stories up to further her narrative, to get leverage and control over her husband and his family, and also the public at large. They also felt that if she would put this out there, that would be enough to just halt the criticism and to get people off her backs. But there was one comment in particular that I read, and I went ahead and pinned it to the very top of the comment section, and I'll read it to you. And the comment is from Marem 1842, and it says, Jane Pauley interview. There was a question on this. The interview was a whole story after, and in the same interview, she, meaning Meghan, She was promoting the parent network in support of this topic. And I thought, you know what? That's actually right. And I didn't talk about it in the last video that I posted because it's almost something that was just so inconsequential that I didn't remember it. But this comment jarred me into it. And I was like, oh yeah. There was, in August 2024, an interview with Harry and Meghan and Jane Pauley through CBS This Morning. At the time, Harry and Meghan were promoting their initiative called the Parents Network. And the Parents Network was a small collective of parents that had experienced the tragedy of a child that had committed suicide due to online cyberbullying. And they're getting these parents together talking about what they went through, about what they can do to stop this in the future. They have always maintained that Meghan, Harry, but particularly Meghan, she is one of the most trolled persons on the internet. They had said that, I believe it was in either 2018 or 2019, that Meghan was one of the most trolled people on the internet. So this dovetails perfectly into their initiative because they've been advocating for years that the internet needs to be a more tightly controlled space, that people should not be allowed to say whatever they think and feel in the internet because it can oftentimes lead to mental and bodily harm to individuals. There are so many people in my country, in the United States, that feel that that in direct opposition to the much cherished First Amendment, which Harry himself called bonkers, right? But the First Amendment says that people are allowed to speak what they feel in a public forum, and it is the duty of well-reasoned, mature individuals to hear and take information that they're seeing and to filter it and come to their own conclusions. Whereas Harry and Meghan have always been on the bandwagon where if they get into law, tighter controls at the onset to stop these voices, that it's going to be safer for everyone involved. So that's what I mean when I say that this parents network dovetails more into these types of what I believe to be censorship initiatives that they have been championing over all these years. I went back and looked at this Jane Pauley interview from August 2024 that this comment is referencing, because I had asserted in my previous video that we have never heard about Meghan wanting to unalive herself before or since the Oprah Winfrey interview. And that's because so many of us didn't buy into her narrative and she was embarrassed of that narrative. So that's why she doesn't really mention it. But this comment said, well, hey, it was brought up in that interview, which made me want to go back and watch it. But even after watching it, yes, I will say that Jane Pauley did bring up in that interview the fact that Meghan told Oprah in 2021 that she wanted to unalive herself. But I'm sorry, I do believe that Meghan never wanted to unalive herself. And the reason why I stand by that even more so now, even after watching that Jane Pauley 2024 interview, is because when Jane Pauley brings it up to Meghan, you can see Meghan's entire face, her body language. She does not want to talk about it. I actually have the transcript from that interview and I'm going to read it to you. And as I read it, I'm going to superimpose pictures of Meghan's face and reactions as Jane Pauley is reminding her of the fact that she did want to unalive herself. And you can tell that Meghan wants no part of this. She wants no part of it. She doesn't want it brought up again, which I find very strange and which I find in direct conflict with the fact that this is your initiative. She told Oprah that because of online harassment and bullying of her by the UK press, it got to be so soul-crushing and just devastating that she felt no other option than to unalive herself. And she was pregnant at the time. She talks about feeling ashamed and embarrassed, having to even go to Harry and tell him about this. And I found the whole narrative so hard to swallow because even before that happened, Harry had told the British press about the initiatives that him and William and Catherine had been involved with, which was about mental health. And he had relayed that William and Catherine had themselves urged Harry to get into therapy to deal with a lot of his own past demons in regards to his mother's death. So if he had already been through the experience of therapy, you would think that he would know what to do if he had a despondent wife coming. I even thought that Meghan telling that story was also garbage in my opinion, because by all accounts, isn't her mother a trained social worker? So if you're embarrassed about telling Harry about it, wouldn't you at least phone your mother up and tell your mother, I'm having these dark and despairing thoughts? But then, she had interviews how not knowing what to do, she's so despondent, but then she goes to the HR section to try to seek help and is told by the palace machine that, no, she can't do that. All of it is very weird and all of it is very cloudy and just strange and doesn't make sense. And there's a reason why it's cloudy and strange and doesn't make sense, because they want it that way. They want to be able to throw these accusations out there because they're unprovable. She can say that she felt like unaliving herself while pregnant. She can say that she went to Harry and he can say he didn't know what to do and they didn't know what to do, but they quietly worked it out together behind the scenes. And that was the impetus for why they wanted to leave the family. But so then to bring it all full circle, but Jane Pauley is asking her, you have this bond with these parents because you yourself have gone through this, and you can just see Meghan just like stiffening up. And then as Meghan's talking about it, her face, her entire countenance, it's almost like she's got that duper's delight grin on. If you went through those dark recesses of the soul, her face would not translate the way that it did when she's talking to Jane. And wouldn't you think that if she had really gone through something like that, in my opinion, that you would want to go into at least a little bit more detail? Because when she's talking to Jane, she doesn't give anything away. It's just almost this surprise that Jane is even bringing it up. But if my experience can help anybody like these parents and the Parents Initiative, then fine. I'll take the heat for that. And I'm thinking, that is the weirdest thing to say. Take the heat for what? If you actually went through something as tragic as wanting to unalive yourself while pregnant, you don't have to take the heat for anything. You don't have to explain yourself to anybody. But she's saying that because she knows that she's not believed. Once I actually read to you the transcript and why even reading that makes me believe even more so that this is all a bunch of hogwash garbage, in my humble opinion. So in the CBS morning interview with Jane Pauley, it shows the clip from the Oprah interview, which I will not show here because I don't want a copyright strike, but it quotes from that interview. And Meghan said in 2021, "I was really ashamed to say it at the time and ashamed to have to admit it to Harry, especially because I know how much loss he suffered. But I knew that if I didn't say it, that I would do it. And I just didn't want to be alive anymore." So Jane Pauley shows us that from 3 years prior. So then it shows Jane Pauley sitting across from Harry and Meghan, and Jane says, "You had an experience that connects you to these families, and I see you touch your husband's hand in just the way I knew that you would be looking after each other if I went places." And she's referencing the point in the interview where Meghan reaches over and touches Harry's knee. And if you go back and watch that interview, and I'll link it in the description, you can watch it for yourself. Harry makes no movement towards Meghan, no eye contact toward Meghan, and Meghan is supposedly relating a very, very tragic point in her life, possibly the most dark and despairing moment she's ever had in her life. And there's nothing coming from Harry. Meghan touches his knee and he doesn't even look toward her or move toward her. He just looks so uncomfortable. It's unbelievable. Almost like he doesn't buy it either. So Jane's, in my opinion, trying to butter them up, saying, "Oh, I see your hand touching him, and I knew you guys would support each other." So then it goes on, quote, this is Jane Pauley, "But the connection that you have with people as they know you had suffered too, personally contemplating killing yourself, is what suicidal ideation was. And I'm dancing around this because I can see you're uncomfortable with my even going there." This is Jane talking. And yeah, you can see Meghan noticeably stiffening up as Jane Pauley is saying, you contemplated killing yourself. You also had this suicidal ideation. Why is she stiffening up? If that's an experience that you went through, there's nothing to be ashamed of if you actually did have those type of dark thoughts. Why are you ashamed, Meghan? Because her whole narrative has been that she wasn't taken to that dark place in of herself. She was thrown in that dark place because of all of the evil, racist commentary and pressure from the British press at that time and from the family itself. So if you're thrown into that position, not of your own volition, why do you seem like you're embarrassed of it? So that's why I don't buy any of this. To me, it's a face of someone who doesn't want to bring it up because it never really happened. in response to Jane saying, "You seem very uncomfortable with me bringing this up." And Meghan says, "I understand why you are," meaning why you're bringing it up, Jane. I wasn't expecting it, but I understand why you are, because there is a through line, I think. I don't know what through line means, but this is me actually going through the transcript of this interview. Why would she be so surprised that Jane would draw the correlation between Meghan's experience and these families' experiences in the parents' network? Why aren't you owning it? And then Meghan continues, right? And she says, "When you've been through any level of pain or trauma, I believe part of our healing journey, certainly part of mine, is being able to be really open about it. And I haven't really scraped the surface on my experience, but I do think that I would never want anyone else to feel that way, and I would never want anyone else to be making those sort of plans, and I would never want someone else to not be believed. So if me voicing what I have overcome will save someone or ask or encourage someone in their life to really genuinely check in on them and not assume that the appearance is good so everything's okay and that's worth it, I'll take the hit for that." What is she talking about? Again, why would you be taking a hit for that? For what supposedly other people are driving you to? Do you see what I mean? She knows that people don't believe the story, and that's why she's saying, "I'm relaying my story and you don't believe me, but I'm going to take the hit for it anyway because I'm now advocating for these parents in this parents network, and that's why I'm such a wonderful person." And then she's, I believe, further making threats because she's saying in this interview that she hadn't really even scratched the surface over what her experience was. That's her veiled way of saying, I haven't released all of the details about all the tragic circumstances that I had to endure behind the scenes. Maybe she's saving it for her book after when they divorce. But I just feel like this is all such complete and total bull. And she's talking about it as being a painful and traumatic experience that people are giving her crap over and they don't believe her, but she's going to take the hit for it now. If it was real, you wouldn't even have to say something like that. That's what makes this so completely tainted. And why would you even say that you're only scratching the surface of it? Why wouldn't you relay the entirety of the story now that you have entered into the forum of this parents network? Don't you want to bring light? Don't you want to bring healing to the situation? Why don't you tell us more about what you went through if that is what indeed really happened? We haven't even heard about what's going on with this parent network, really, have we? You can look back at an interview like that from August 2024 and how they're now, during the hustle and bustle of the Christmas season, choosing this time of year to restructure their foundation into this philanthropic effort. And then that's the time that they choose to throw it out into the public domain. When people are busy, people are consumed with the holiday season. And you know, Harry and Meghan are always like the kid that got their hands caught in the cookie jar, except that they're the kid that's got a bunch of money and a PR machine behind them to spin the fact that, yeah, they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar, but they're going to do everything they can to either deflect or explain away why they're stealing cookies. So the fact that they're switching from a foundation model to a philanthropic model isn't too crazy exciting, but if you follow those has-beens the way that we all do, it is particularly exciting because you see the deception that's going on here. And it's been everything that's been released about these 990 IRS forms that makes you scratch your head and wonder, what are these fools up to? What shenanigans are they getting into? And it's becoming more and more increasingly apparent that 5 years ago now, when they started this foundation, I think they really thought that they were going to be billionaires at this point. They, I believe, were envisioning that they were going to be like the Bill Gates and the Jeff Bezos of the world, that they were going to have so much money coming in that they were going to be able to funnel it into a foundation type of financial model, that they were going to be able to enjoy all of the tax benefits that a foundation would give them, and they were going to be able to tightly control that. But that type of model really only is good and can be profitable if you have money coming in. But every single year since they left the royal family, from 2020 all the way down to where we find ourselves now in 2025, the money has not been coming in. For example, in 2021, 13 million was funneled into their foundation. And now where are we in 2025? Well, when we look at last year's 909, the IRS tax filings, only 2.1 million. That is a huge discrepancy. And not only that, but they're spending a lot more than they're getting in donations. And they're spending a lot more than even what they're giving out in the form of grants. Going from getting 13 million at the onset of this foundation to now a paltry 2.1 million in 2024, these two are not doing well. And according to these latest filings, they paid out only 1.25 million in grants, but they spent 2.9 million. Where do you think that went? Oh, hey, they went to those Colombia and Nigeria trips that they took back in 2024. You know, those like drive-by high wave meet and greets where she was wearing thousands upon thousands of dollars of just these horridly ugly outfits in Colombia and Nigeria. In Nigeria, where you had people criticizing the way that she was dressed with all of these, backless, strapless dresses, where in a country like Nigeria, women cover up. They don't like that in their culture. It's just crazy. So you've got these super high administration costs of this foundation that they probably perceived was going to be a lot bigger than it ended up being. These super high costs compared with how much they're bringing in. And people are like, what was this endeavor all about? Is it about brand building and about personal recognition, or are you actually trying to make your mark in the world of charitable work? So now, as I understand it, what they're doing with this whole Archwell philanthropic thing, now what they're doing is this Archwell oh God, it's such a mouthful, philanthropies, right? They have this kind of charity sponsorship model where there's a parent charity sponsorship that's going to pretty much do all the heavy lifting that they don't want to do, and that they're just kind of going to show up and cut the ribbon, so to speak, which is what they could have done had they stayed in the family, in the British royal family. They've got this sponsorship charity model. There's going to be stuff that's going on behind the scenes that charity sponsor is going to take care of for them. They're going to take care of all the financials. They're going to take care of all the legalities, all the stuff that they don't want to have a hand in. And doing this because they can save money, they can downsize their team, and they don't have to endure that level of scrutiny. A lot more expensive to maintain a standalone foundation on its own. They didn't think that would have been a problem considering how much money they felt that they were probably supposed to have been raking in. But the money's not coming in, the money's drying up. So now they have to go to this sponsorship charity model. And then they're not going to fall into the trap of where they have years past where, they've been taking the time in putting out their filings and then they were getting these public delinquency notices. Like they don't have to deal with that. Someone else is doing all of this for them. But what's so funny is they could have just done this from the very beginning. But the reason why super rich people like Harry and Meghan were at the time, they're probably not so much anymore, but the reason why super rich people like the Obamas, like the Clintons want to set up these foundations is because they want to preserve legacy and they want to build wealth shielded from excessive taxation. And these people do things like put their children on the boards of these foundations, and through the foundation, the children are paid salaries and the children are given perks. And there's all these benefits rolled into these foundations. Mind you, you have to disclose things about what you're doing in the foundation, but really, even with the foundation, you're only legally obligated to donate 5% of what you take in as a foundation to your charitable endeavors. And, when people donate to your foundations, they don't tell you where they want you to put the money. They donate to a foundation and then you decide where you want to put the money. So it was like this ultimate type of control that they wanted to have. They wanted to build legacy and they wanted to build wealth, and they only wanted to probably portion out a small 5% of whatever they were taking in to these outside so-called causes of theirs. But they could maintain that public veneer of, we're such wonderful humanitarians, look what we're doing. That is what I felt is just really, really just kind of icky and gross about foundations. I've always felt like that about foundations. And I've even talked about this in some of my earlier videos where I've said, if you're interested in charity, if you want to really help somebody, give to the actual charities themselves. Bypass these foundations, because under tax law in the US, they're not legally obligated to donate anything beyond the 5%. So that's why I've always said that if there's a cause that is really, really near and dear to your heart, you want to make sure that 100% of your donation goes opposed to said cause, look into the charity and find out what happens and where it goes to. Legit charities like the Salvation Army, like the ASPCA, charities that you know, or the March of Dimes or something, or St. Jude Children's Hospital, where you know that the money that you give go where it's most needed. Don't give to clowns like Harry and Meghan who have a foundation. But guess what? They don't have a foundation anymore because they don't have the money to funnel into the foundation. So that is why we are seeing what we're seeing, but they're trying to pretty it up. They're trying to tell us that they are involving their children now, and their children, Archie and Lily, are going to be involved in these charitable and philanthropic efforts that they're launching. To me, it's all a bunch of garbage. It's all a bunch of BS. And now tying this into what we were talking about earlier in the video about this so-called parents network, because now as they've shifted to this more philanthropic model, they're not even managing it. It shows now a little more than a year later, after August 2024, when they launched that initiative. I did a little bit of research and asked the old Google AI, and listen to what it says. It says that the key changes now regarding the managerial control of this parents network, it's the operational integration now. So now they've taken this parents network and they're integrating it with an organization that is called Parents Together. And this happened just recently in October 2025. And it was announced that the Parents Network would join forces with Parents Together, which is a large national nonprofit. And this partnership is designed to leverage Parents Together's existing infrastructure. Okay, so what they're doing is they're taking that and scaling the Parents Network's reach beyond what the Archwell small team could manage. And it's another fiscal sponsorship model. So what they're basically doing is they're taking that and they're just passing the buck over to this bigger organization, Parents Together. And they're the ones that are going to be absorbing now this Parents Network. So in my personal opinion, they could launch in 24, get the headline, get the interview, get the primo CBS This Morning interview with Jane Pauley that they wanted. They got the press coverage that they needed. And then now, as they're seeing that, holy hell, the money isn't coming in, let's just softball that to this other larger organization, which is going to be now part of this fiscal sponsorship. Like, do you see what they're doing? Nothing that these two have done and started in this so-called humanitarian era of theirs since they left the family, nothing has really come to any real fruition. What really could you look back at in these 5 years and say, wow, like Harry and Meghan really made a marked difference in this area, in that area? It's just like whatever is going on at the time, it's almost like I'm going to go attend the church of what's happening now. It's like whatever I feel that I can get the most headlines in now, I'm going to dip my toe into that initiative, Parents Network, for a hot minute. Or like what they did this past Thanksgiving. I'm going to go pay a $3,000 corporate fee, with the Archwell Foundation funds and get a cool picture showing me and Harry and the kids bagging up food for Thanksgiving. Or I'm going to go make a cool trip to Nigeria or Colombia and show up in all these fabulous ugly designer costumes and show that I'm out making a difference. I'm championing for marginalized communities all over the globe. It's like, give me a break. So yeah, this is all that I'm seeing. This is all that I'm observing, and I still don't buy it. I see through all of it, and especially watching that Jane Pauley interview, and I would encourage you to go watch it for yourself. You watch that interview and you tell me if Meghan looks like she is someone honest and forthright about her experiences about being suicidal. Would she have been so jarred and so uncomfortable and, have this off-putting, face and body language about her if she had really gone through that? Wouldn't she really want to open up and tell Jane, tell the television audience, and tell those parents in the Parents Network what she went through and why she's using that tragedy to really, really help people overcome this? This is not a face of someone relaying the fact that she was suicidal, grinning like that and tossing her hair and then turning to Harry and say, well, my husband's so wonderful because of Harry's support, she didn't go through with it, she's here. But remember, she said that she didn't even really scratch the surface of her story. So I think she's alluding to the fact that there's more to come, and she's threatening the family with this more to come. What else could she say that would give her even the tiniest inkling that we would even believe what she has to say at this point? And that was the point of my first video, to take the tragedy, the human tragedy that is suicide, where people are so lost and so in a state of utter despair that they feel that the only way out is to snuff out the life that God gave them, to use that tragedy to further her own narrative, to retain control over her husband and leverage over her husband and his family and us, ultimately. This is her way of saying to us, you'd better shut up and you'd better stop criticizing me because I went through this. I went through this. You can't prove that I didn't go through this. And because of that, I regain control of the situation. But then it stands to reason that someone like me would watch that Jane Pauley interview and say to ourselves, if you really did go through that, your words and your body language don't match up to someone who really did go through that and wants to use that experience to help others. She seems embarrassed by the fact that it's brought up. She seems upset at Jane Pauley for bringing it up. And then she throws out these tidbits as if to say, well, I've only scratched the surface. There's more to come. Just try me. And then again, anchoring herself to that victim narrative. This is the horrible, rotten thing that I went through. But if I can help people with this parents network, I'll take the hit for it. Does all of that speak of someone who genuinely went through that experience and is trying to use that experience to help others? What do you think about that? I sure as hell don't. And I think it's dark, and I think it's grifty, and I think it's disgusting, and I don't believe her. That is my personal opinion. I don't believe her. And don't think for 1 second that I take any pleasure in saying that I don't believe that she wanted to unalive herself. I don't. And that is where we find ourselves now. The loss of her humanity, the fact that she'll use something like that, anything, she'll use anything to gain control and leverage over everyone around her, including us. She wants us to like her so much. She wants so much of that power, so much of that influence that she will do anything to get it. And it is tragic to watch someone lower themselves so completely like that. What, for just some perceived fame and influence? You're doing everything you can to lose your soul, Meghan, and it's tragic. So this woman is definitely on my prayer list. And you know what? As much as she may annoy so many of us out there, we need to pray for this woman, because if this is what she will do to get control and leverage and power and money and influence and fame, hurting her husband, hurting her family, and vomiting all of this out into the public narrative, it's scary. What else is she capable of? I am so grateful that that commenter put that comment on my video. It reminded me to watch that Jane Pauley interview, because I was asserting again that I don't remember her ever bringing up these dark thoughts before or since this Oprah interview. So when I did go back and watch, it was further proof in my mind that it was all a made up yarn. It's all very sad. It's all very scary. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Currently, I am working on a couple of big videos, all of the worst of Harry and Meghan in 2025, about all the stories and all of the hoopla that these two have been throwing out on the public domain for the last year. You know, splicing and dicing all of my clips and analysis. I am so looking forward to bringing that one to you. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. I will talk to you very, very soon. Bye.